This is lecture number 7, Principles of Animal Nutrition. In this lecture, we will discuss about absorption of nutrients. Until now, we have discussed in detail about a general digestion of different type of nutrients. Uh, in coming lectures, when we will discuss individual nutrients, then again we will discuss the digestion of that particular nutrient in detail. Generally, we have discussed all about digestion. So next is how nutrients they are absorbed, where they are absorbed, what are the main carriers that help in absorption, or you can say the routes of absorption, and finally the mechanism of absorption. So absorption is defined as it is the passage of digested nutrients through the mucous membrane of the small intestine, or it can also be defined as the process of taking digested part of the feed into the bloodstream. What are different modes? Before that, those mode of absorptions, they depend on the chemical nature of the nutrient and the site where they are get absorbed. So these are the two factors that affect the mode of absorption of nutrient. So when we look at the digestive system, most of the absorption that occur in the small intestine, we have already discussed that. So starting from the mouth, there is no absorption before the feed enter the stomach. So in the mouth and esophagus, particularly in mouth, due to the presence of salivary amylase, there is digestion, but there is no absorption. So when we talk about the stomach, in case of ruminant animals, there is a lot of fermentation in the rumen, as well as there is a lot of absorption in the rumen. A considerable amount of volatile fatty acids. There are three main volatile fatty acids: acetic acid, propanonic acid, and butyric acid. After being their formation by the microorganisms, they are absorbed through the ruminal wall. Then there is a production of ammonia and other gases in the rumen that also get absorbed through the ruminal wall, and same is true for the amino acids. And some of the absorption also occur from the abomasum, particularly if ammonia is there. In case of non-ruminant animals, there is no absorption in the stomach. So we can say in simple stomach animal, after stomach, there is no absorption. However, some amount of water or some minerals, they might get absorbed through the wall of the stomach, but that absorption is very little absorption. Then comes the small intestine. This is the primary site of absorption, and majority of the nutrients, they are absorbed through the small intestine. When we talk about the functional cecum, like in case of poultry and horses, the functional colon, the protein and some amino acids which are produced as a result of microbial fermentation, they get absorbed from that area. But again, that absorption is not of very large amount. In rest of the large intestinal part, like rectum, there and cecum and colon, before that rectum, mostly the water get absorbed from the large intestine along with the electrolytes or minerals which are present in the water or in the stuff passing through the large intestine. So mostly water and electrolytes, like electrolytes here mean the minerals, they're absorbed. So in the small intestine, the major absorptive site is jejunum, whereas duodenum is mostly the site where there is mixing, neutralizing, and digestion of the nutrient, and through the jejunum, and the nutrient they get absorbed. Small intestine is provided with a special type of structure on the surface of that small intestine, there are finger-like projections, which are known as villi. So thousands of finger-like projections, they are present on the small intestine, and small inner side of the small intestine is folded into a number of folds. So that basically increases the surface area of the small intestine. So to further increase the area for absorption, each villi is covered with a microscopic hair-like structure. That structure is known as microvilli. So the folding, presence of villi and microvilli increases the surface area for the absorption of the nutrients. So if we look at a small intestine, which is of 10 feet in length, so when we unfold it and we measure the area of these microvilli, so that can be converted into a quarter of a football field. So here you can imagine how large is the area where nutrient absorption occurs. We have already discussed in the previous lecture that each villi or each villus, it contains arteriole, venule, lacteal. So it means there is a sufficient supply of blood to absorb the nutrient and to carry those nutrients to the liver. So venule, they drain into the hepatic portal system, whereas the lacteal, they drain into the lymphatic system, and they are mainly deal with the absorption of the fatty acids. You can see the gastrointestinal tract. Then you can see over here the folding of that, and each folding the inner surface that have this villi structure, and each villi is then provided with the capillary network, then artery, venule, and lymphatic system. So if you look at the structure of the villi, so each villi, it contains these microscopic hair-like structure, so that are known as microvilli. So in this way, this folding and then presence of these villi, and under each villi, the presence of this microvilli, that increases the surface area for the absorption of the nutrients. So again, a very close picture, presence of villi, and then the provision of these arteriole and venule for the supply of blood and for the absorption of the nutrients. Again, the structure of the small intestine, almost the same things over here. So not only that part of the small intestine, if you look at the jejunum, this is a very microscopic picture of the jejunum with the presence of villi, how that increases the area. Now here about the absorption of nutrient across the intestine. Esophagus, no absorption from the stomach, that I mentioned, that there is the absorption of some of the minerals and water or alcohol type stuff. But when we talk about the jejunum, you look at this, almost majority of the vitamins and minerals, they get absorbed from the jejunum. Then when we talk about the nutrients, lipids, then carbohydrates in the form of monosaccharides, amino acid, and small peptides, they get absorbed from the jejunum. Then from the ileum, there is absorption of mostly some of the vitamins and some minerals. Bile salt and acids, they get absorbed through the ileum. And from the large intestine, there is mainly absorption of water and some of the minerals through the large intestine. Now, vitamin K and biotin also get absorbed through the large intestine. There are the short chain fatty acids, they also get absorbed from the large intestine. But in comparison, the majority of the nutrients, macro and micronutrients, they get absorbed from the jejunum. Then comes the routes of absorption. Mainly there are two main routes of absorption. The one is through portal blood system, and second one is the lymphatic system. Portal blood is a little different when we talk about the routine blood flow in the human being or other animals. Basically, it drains the intestinal area and carries to the liver rather than going into the heart. Then lymphatic system that is responsible for the absorption of lipid and lipid or fat soluble compounds like fat soluble vitamins. So it bypasses the liver. It empties into the bloodstream through thoracic duct, and it serves stomach as well as the small intestine. So the systematic blood that is basically the entire blood that serve the entire system. So generally, portal blood and lymphatic system, these are the two main routes of absorption that carry the nutrients. So when we talk about the blood or vascular system, so water, salt, glycerol, that's a part of lipid, amino acid, short chain fatty acid, carbohydrate in the form of monosaccharides and all vitamins, they carry through this blood. They are absorbed into the capillary system of the intestine. Then that drains into the venous system, and that empty into the portal vein of the liver. So once the nutrients they are in the liver, they then travel through the hepatic vein, which then enter into the systematic vein through the vena cava. This is how the nutrients they are carried from, they are absorbed from the small intestine, and then they carry to the liver, and from liver then they carry to the rest of the body through vascular system or general circulation. So this is when we talk about this vascular system, it's a closed system with the heart serving as a pump. So blood travel from heart to artery, then capillaries, then veins, then back to the heart. There is no other organ. So it goes to the capillaries of that tissue or organ, and then from that it carry to the heart. But when we talk about the digestive system, here there is an exception. From the heart through artery, blood goes into the intestinal capillaries. From intestinal capillaries through portal vein, it carry to the capillaries of the liver rather than carried back to the heart. It goes to the liver, and then from hepatic portal vein, it then carry to the heart. So this is the difference between the normal or general blood circulatory system and with the GIT. Then comes the lymphatic system that mainly responsible for the absorption of fat and fat soluble compounds, so cholesterol, water, and long chain fatty acids, and the proteins which are linked with the fatty acid in the form of lipoprotein. They are carried through the lymphatic system. So lymph empty into the venous system, anterior to the heart through thoracic duct, and then it carried to the liver or the tissues. So this is how the fat or lipid they get absorbed. So when we talk about the water soluble nutrients, they are either carbohydrate, protein, lipids. Lipids are not water soluble, or even the short chain fatty acids and glycerols, they get absorbed through this vascular system or hepatic portal vein, and water soluble vitamins. And almost all of the minerals, they are the water soluble. So carbohydrates after digestion, they are available in the form of their monomers or their monosaccharide units. Then they are absorbed into the blood. Protein, they have a structure of amino acids, and that amino acids then absorbed into the blood. In case of lipid, only glycerol and short chain fatty acid. Glycerol is a alcohol, and short chain fatty acids, they are the fatty acids of having a short chain length, they absorbed into the blood. Then vitamins B complex and vitamin C that absorbed into the blood, and minerals they absorb into the blood. When we talk about fat and fat soluble nutrients, which are mainly absorbed and released into the lymph and then into the blood. So from the intestinal lumen, what happened? The triglyceride, it's a lipid which contains glycerol that is attached with 3 fatty acids. So that is converted into monoglyceride and long chain fatty acids. First, the fatty lipid is converted into this state, and then again it is repacked in the intestinal lumen into triglyceride. So triglyceride is first converted into, after breakdown, into glycerol, short chain, long chain fatty acids, and monoacyl glycerol, where one fatty acid is attached with the glycerol. So out of that short chain fatty acid and glycerol, they absorb directly into the blood, whereas the monoacyl glycerol, yeah, monoglyceride, and long chain fatty acids, they are absorbed into the intestinal lumen, where they are repacked in the form of in a form of triglyceride. So from intestinal lumen to onward, uh, passing through that intestinal lumen, they are in the form of triglyceride, cholesterol, and phospholipids. They are after repacking, they have this type of stuff that contain these three things. So that stuff is known as chylomicron. Okay, where the phospholipids, cholesterol, and triglyceride, they are joined together in a form of a structure. So that structure is known as chylomicron. It's a sort of lipid and protein complex and containing triglyceride, cholesterol, and phospholipids. So this chylomicron then passes into the lymph, and then from lymph into the blood. We will discuss in detail when we will discuss about fat digestion and absorption. So just a brief summary how the fat that get absorbed or then passes to the lymph and blood. Fat soluble vitamins, vitamin A, D, E, and K. These are the fat soluble vitamins because they are solubilized in the fat, so they follow the same pathway as followed by the fat. So they are they absorbed into the lymph and then carried to the blood. So when all the nutrients they are either through this lymphatic system or through vascular system, they carry to the liver. So then liver plays its role. So in case of carbohydrate, the end product of carbohydrate digestion, they are the monosaccharides, and particularly that end product of digestion is the glucose. So glucose formation occur in the liver from fructose. Fructose is a monosaccharide, galactose, and excess glycogen. All these monosaccharides, they are finally converted into glucose by the liver. Then again, there is a glycogen formation if glucose is present in excess form. So this is also in the liver. Then comes the lipid. Sorry, this is the protein. This mistakenly written over here, lipid. So it's a protein. Protein end product because of protein digestion is amino acids. So amino acids they carry to the liver, where the amino group from that amino acid is removed. That result in the formation of new amino acid. So that process is known as deamination, where ammonia is removed from the amino acid. So this deamination occur in the liver, and then there is the synthesis of non-essential amino acids, urea formation from the ammonia in the liver. Then there is also synthesis of many other products in the liver. Detoxification of drugs and poison is also going on into the liver. So when we talk about the lipid, so in the liver there is a synthesis and breakdown of triglyceride, phospholipids, and cholesterol. So whatever is required by the body, either liver will synthesize that, or if they are present in excess, or to synthesize something else from that stuff. So that causes the breakdown of the stuff. So there is mainly for the transportation of lipid, there is a synthesis of lipoprotein. The lipid is transported in the body or through blood in the form of lipoprotein. That's why we say that's a good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. So that's a type of lipoprotein that is carried through the blood, not only the cholesterol. Synthesis of bile from the cholesterol, formation of ketone bodies, and that is also the role of liver. Then mechanism of absorption, how nutrients they get absorbed. The first one is the passive transport. And that is movement of molecules from an area of greater concentration to an area of lesser concentration. So this is simple diffusion. We say molecules from a higher concentration they pass to the other side where the concentration is less. So this is known as simple diffusion, and it is a down a gradient concentration. So there is no requirement of energy. Molecule must be in a small form so that they can diffuse easily. A diffusion of water across a membrane, that is particularly the process is known as osmosis. Then water and small lipids, they are short chain fatty acids or small lipids, they pass through this passive transport system. This is the example of simple diffusion. Here you can see this cell membrane or lipid bilayer. Passive transport is molecules, they are in a higher concentration in the extracellular space. So they pass to the intracellular space where the concentration is less. So this is a simple diffusion and the concentration become equal on both sides. Then come a facilitated diffusion. Facilitated diffusion is there when nutrients cannot pass by simple diffusion. When simple diffusion is not working, so then a carrier protein is required to across the cell membrane. So that carrier protein is usually embedded in the cell membrane and it changes its shape when nutrient attached to them. So that enables the molecule to cross the membrane. So this type of diffusion is usually down a concentration gradient and molecules can move into or out of the cell through this facilitated diffusion. Again, there is no energy requirement from the cell. So here you can see this is the protein channel and this is the extracellular space with the available nutrients and this is the carrier protein. So the nutrients, they get entered into the carrier protein, it changes its shape and then it carry the stuff to the intracellular spaces. So this is simply due to the provision of some protein or carrier protein, the nutrients or the molecules or ions, they get passed through the cell membrane. So there's a difference between this another illustration of this facilitated diffusion. You can see this is the carrier protein, this is the cell membrane, and then the nutrients they are come in contact with the carrier protein and it passes to the intracellular space. And it's the same. So the difference between these two methods, simple diffusion, higher to lower concentration movement, and then facilitated diffusion through the presence of a carrier protein. Next is active transport. This is opposite of this diffusion, that is upper concentration gradient from lower to higher concentration. So that require a source of energy and ATP is required. And carrier protein is sometimes also required that usually act as a pump and that uses the energy to move the ion across the cell membrane. Here you can see there's the area of lower concentration and then through active transport, the molecule pass to the area of higher concentration. From this example, you can very well imagine that glucose have two different mechanisms of absorption. The first is through active transport and second is through facilitated transport. Active transport is in action when glucose transport occur into the villus epithelium. Glucose concentration in the cell is greater than in the small intestine. So at that time, energy is required. So the active transport mechanism is available for its transport. But once it is into into the intestinal epithelium, so what happens at that stage, the glucose transport across that basolateral surface of the cell into the blood is through facilitated diffusion. The reason being the concentration in the blood is less than the cell. So the facilitated mechanism is active at that time. The last one is the pinocytosis, or simply it's a cell drinking. Here you can see this extracellular fluid that contain the nutrients. They then come in contact with the plasma membrane and that engulf the stuff and then it carry into the cytoplasm. So this mechanism is known as pinocytosis or cell drinking, particularly when we talk about immunoglobulin absorption in young calf. So that is due to this mechanism. Immunoglobulin, they are taken as such because if immunoglobulin they are broken down, then their immunogenicity will not be of that value. So immunoglobulin they are absorbed as such to provide maximum antibodies to the calf. So that's why we say we should provide calf with the colostrum as early as possible after its birth. The reason being, just after 30 minutes of its birth, the intestinal pores they are open and that immunoglobulin they can be easily absorbed through the intestine rather than being degraded in the small intestine and then get absorbed. So at that stage, cell drinking or this pinocytosis is involved. So this is all about this absorption. So if you have any question, you can ask